What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on Dad's truck once again. For those of you that don't know, this is a 2012 Chevy Silverado 1500 with the Flex Fuel 5.3 liter. It is also equipped with AFM and DOD, which leads us to today's issue. Over the course of the last few weeks, this thing has started to have a really bad tick that is not getting any better. So we reached out to our boy over at Ed G-Tuned, and he put us together a nice cam kit, of course using a BTR camshaft. We decided to go with the BTR Truck Norris cam and their LS7 lifter package, as well as the DOD delete kit. If you guys want anything like that or need any tuning, make sure to hit up Ed G-Tuned. I link all of his information in the description below each video, so make sure to hit him up. He helps the channel out a lot, so if you guys need something, make sure to reach out. But with that being said, let's go ahead, get through the intro. We'll fire this thing up so that you can hear what it sounds like now, and then we can start tearing it apart. Now that we've gotten through the intro, I'm gonna go ahead and reach inside the truck. I'll fire it up for a few seconds so that you guys can hear what it sounds like, and then we'll get ready to start tearing this thing down. So as you guys can hear, the tick has started to get pretty bad. So that's why we're doing today's video. We're gonna get this thing stripped down. We need to get the head off. We've already got the hood pulled off this thing just to make it a little bit easier to work on and fit in our low clearance garage. So now that we've got the hood out of our way, first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and get all this front stuff pulled off. We'll get the fluids draining, and then we can start taking everything off the top of the engine so that we can get the heads off. So let's get some tools out and get to work. First thing we're gonna do, guys, now that we got the hood off, is we're gonna go ahead and get this plastic shroud out of our way. And then we'll start working on getting the intake out of the way so we can start draining the radiator. To make this thing a little bit easier to work on, I'm going to let a bunch of air out of the tires. It'll let the truck drop down a little bit more in the front. We're just going to go ahead and loosen up the schrader belt. You can do the same thing on the other side. If you're short, you could always just pull the wheels off and set it down on blocks, but I think doing that, not sure if you guys can see the other side of the truck, but it's got a big lean, so it definitely brought it down quite a bit. So we'll do the same thing to the other side, which is just going to make it easier on us throughout this project. Now that we got the grill and that shroud piece and the intake out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and undo that lower radiator hose. We'll get that thing to start draining so we can get all this stuff out of here. There's no good way to do this without making a mess. Now that we've got the radiator draining, I'm going to work on getting the electric cooling fans out of the way. We've got to get all the transmission lines disconnected. Sometimes they can be a pain, but I'm sure there's probably a special tool for this. But I'll wiggle them a little bit, and then I just take a flat tip screwdriver, get them started, and just work it out, just like so. Then you've got your clip out. And then this line will just wiggle out, just like so. And then you'll make a mess everywhere. The rest of them are the same way. Like I said, this is an engine oil cooler line. Same with the big bottom one over here. And then on the other side, we've got transmission cooler lines. This truck also has an auxiliary transcooler in the front, so got a whole bunch of transmission lines we can undo. Now that we've got the cooler lines disconnected, we can go ahead and pop the 2 upper bolts for our radiator and pull that out of our way. Go ahead and pull this thing out. We can get the serpentine belt out of our way. Throw this to the side. I'm not sure if I can, but I'm gonna try to just undo the power steering pump and let that hang, and then we can take this whole bracket with the alternator for the drive assembly out. 1 bolt. They make it so you can't get it with a socket. I'm not sure if I have to pull the power steering pulley or if we can do it this way, but we're gonna find out. There we go. Now that we got that out of the way, I think I'm gonna go ahead and finish some electrical, and then we'll get the intake manifold pulled off. Now that I got most of the electrical disconnected and everything unhooked from the intake manifold, we're gonna grab our fuel line quick disconnect tool. This one's a 3/8, and we're gonna go ahead and get that fuel line popped off. And the fuel line just pulls back like so, and you leak gas everywhere. And then your fuel line's disconnected. Now we can go around and undo all the intake manifold bolts and get that out of our way. We should be just about ready to pull this intake manifold off. If you guys aren't pulling the heads, then definitely vacuum this all out, clean it out best you can. But the heads are coming off anyways, so I'm not too worried about if anything falls down in there right now.
And we have a mouse nest.
Now I'm gonna go through, get the plug wires off, and then I will start trying to break all the manifold bolts loose.
Oh yeah.
Got all the manifold bolts out. One was already broken on the driver's side rear corner, and then one towards the middle snapped on me over here. So not too bad, but we'll worry about that once we get the heads off. I'll show you guys how we're gonna get those out. The next thing that I'm gonna do is undo a couple of these heater hoses, and then we'll start unbolting the water pump so we can get that thing right out of our way. I like to leave a couple bolts in it and then break it free. Now I'm going to remove the coolant crossover tube so that we can take each head individually. So as you can see, we've got a bunch of stuff pulled off and out of our way. The next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to try to get these exhaust manifolds out of here. We're not sure if we're going to go with long tube headers or if these are going to be going back on. But either way, I just think it'll be easier to take those right off out of the way. And that'll keep us from having to work around them when we go to set the heads on with the new gaskets and everything. I already have that wheel well out, and we're gonna undo the O2 sensor and then just try to get that manifold right out of there. I wanna tell you guys that we are working in collaboration with Spelab to get you guys 15% off at checkout by simply entering the code BOUGHT2, that's BOUGHT, the number 2, at checkout to save 15% on anything that Spelab has to offer, including these electric cutouts. Again, that's BOUGHT2, B-O-U-G-H-T, the number 2, at checkout to save 15%. Alright, we got that manifold out. We want to take the dipstick out of the way, but we're afraid to mess with it because I'm afraid it's going to break off in the block. So we haven't decided what we're going to do with that yet. Right now we're just going to let it chill there. Next I'm going to start taking the coil pack bracket off so that we can get to the valve cover bolts. Set this to the side, we'll get the other one off, then we can do the valve covers. I'm gonna go ahead and pull all the spark plugs out so the engine's nice and easy to turn over. Now we're gonna remove both valve covers starting on the driver's side. I don't think these things have ever been off, and if they have been, it's been a very long time because they do not want to budge. There they go. the gasket actually stayed right on the head. As you can see, it didn't come off with the valve cover like normal. As you can see, it actually looks really good in there for the amount of miles on this truck, so I'm super happy to see that. So we'll go ahead and set these off to the side and get the other one off. This one, the gasket kind of came with it.
Clean.
Go ahead and set these off to the side. So as you guys see, we got the valve covers apart, and I got this thing on TDC right now. And if you take a close look at this rocker right here, you can see that it's got a ton of play. As you can see, the other ones feel normal. So we're definitely gonna have to take a closer look at that one when we get this thing apart, because all the other ones look really good. So we'll go ahead, get all the rockers pulled off, pull the push rods out, and take a closer look. I've got the engine turned over so that some of the rockers are loose. So we'll go ahead and pop those ones free, do the same on the other side, then we'll rotate the engine some more so that we can get the ones that do have tension on them. So we'll start off by getting any loose ones broken free and backed off a little bit here. Take our 24mm socket and a breaker bar, and we will go ahead and turn this over a little bit. Now that we turned the engine over and got all these things broken loose, I'm just going to run them out with the electric ratchet. Carefully take the whole assembly out. We'll go set this on the bench, keeping them in order, just like so. Set these on the bench in order. Now that we've got the rockers and push rods off, we're finally ready to remove the head. I'm gonna loosen them in the reverse sequence of how you would tighten them. So we're gonna start with the little bolts along the top. We'll work from the outside, work our way in, and we'll just go through, do those, and then we can do all the bigger bolts. So let's go ahead and start popping those loose. Now we can move over to the bigger bolts. We're going to do the same thing, go in the reverse order of what they want you to tighten them in. So 10 would be this one here. I'm going to go ahead and see if the head feels loose. Oh yeah, actually came right off. Alright, so I'll run that last bolt out and we can pull the head. Oh, we got the head off it. Bottom end doesn't look as fresh as the heads, but it doesn't look horrible. Alright, we'll get ready to pull the other head. Alright, we got both heads off it. I'm going to go ahead and get that coolant out of the cylinders. This side's actually not bad at all. And then we'll clean up a little bit and take a look at what we've got. Now we can go ahead and pop the valley cover off. This right here is part of what we're deleting. Now I'm going to take a 10mm socket and loosen up our lifter trays so that we can pull the lifters out and see what they look like. So we're just going to carefully pull out these lifter trays. I have 2 that are going to come with it, 2 that are going to stay. be careful. Try not to drip oil everywhere, like I am. That roller looks good too. Only a little bit to it. Then we're gonna do the same thing on the back. We'll just pull the tray out. That. That one's got some scoring, not bad. Main line right around it though. The bodies are scored up pretty good, but the roller's not bad. All right, now we can do the same thing on the other side, get all the lifters out, and then we can start pulling the crank pulley and getting the timing cover off. So as you guys seen, we got all the lifters out except for one. If you remember, the 5th in rocker on this side was super sloppy, and I think we found out why that is. So as you can see those vice grips, I've got them locked on to the lifter that's there, and that thing won't move at all. I got it to go down a little bit, but I can't get it to come back up and out. So the only thing I know to do here is to go ahead, do the balancer, get the timing cover off, pull the cam, and hopefully try to go down with it and catch it. So that's what we're gonna try to do. I'm gonna go ahead, pull the balancer off and the timing cover and try to get this cam out. I've got a 24mm socket on my impact gun, and we're gonna try to zap this crank bolt out. Yep. So I've got a nice balancer puller set, but it doesn't work with the stock LS balancers. So we went to AutoZone and they had this one. So we're gonna see if we can make this one work and try to get this balancer off of here. About there.
Oh, okay. There it is.
Just like that. All right. Got the balancer off. Now we can go ahead and pull the timing cover off. As you can see, this is a funky looking gear set. It's because this still has the VVT. As you guys can see, I've got the cam gear in my hand. Of course, as soon as I stopped the camera, this thing fell right off in my hand. So now that we have that off, we can get a T40 Torx and start getting the Torx head bolts out that hold the cam retaining plate, so that hopefully we can get the cam out and try to get that lifter to go down through the bore. Got our T40 Torx. Just gonna work these guys out. Now that we got the bolt out, we can take the cam retaining plate off. When you get this off, you always want to look at the orange O-ring there and make sure it's raised, because if it's not, it could leak. Not gonna lie, ours looks extremely flat. So sometimes they'll come back when they're sitting, they'll raise back up a little bit, but ours looks pretty well smushed. So we'll probably have to get a new plate, but not a big deal. We'll set this aside and decide what we're gonna do with that. Now we can finally start getting this cam out. As you guys can see, I've got vice grips on that lifter again to make sure we hold it up until we're ready. We'll pull the cam out and then we can try getting that lifter out. All right guys, so here goes nothing. I'm gonna use the bolt that came out of the cam to give us a little bit of leverage to get this thing moving, and we'll go ahead and try to pull this cam out. Alright guys, so this is where everything started to go downhill. I didn't really do a very good job of documenting it because I was just trying to figure out what was going on, what our cause was in trying to get this camshaft out. So what had happened was this camshaft was still fully in the engine. It didn't move, not even a little bit. Usually when you go to pull these things out, they have a tiny bit of suction and then we all try to avoid it, but it usually comes forward and you hear that little ding as it drops. This one, I couldn't even get it to move a little bit. So I kept working it back and forth using a wrench on the cam bolt, and this thing would spin perfectly fine. I just couldn't get it to move outward at all. So eventually I grabbed a long flathead screwdriver and then ended up stepping up to a pry bar, still working this thing back and forth because like I said, it continued to spin freely and this thing finally came forward. Now, once it did, I found the cause of our issue. The number 3 cam bearing was basically seized right to the camshaft. I'm not sure why why, because it still kept spinning with no problem. It would still spin in the bore, no problem, but I just couldn't get this thing to move back and forth at all. So once I got it to move forward, I realized that the number 3 cam bearing came out with the camshaft, and at this point it was just kind of chilling on the cam itself. So I had to use a camera that links to my phone. It's basically a scope to see what was going on, and I used some thick welding wire that I had, and I was able to get it in there and get it looped around the cam bearing at this point, and was able to kind of work it back off the back of the camshaft as I slid it the rest of the way out. And we just had to try to snake it out without dropping it at this point and try to continue to work the camshaft out. Now, once I finally got the camshaft out, obviously that number 3 cam bearing was completely destroyed, and the rest of them look pretty beat as well. And the cam bore where the bearing would go didn't look so great either. So that led us to pulling the whole engine out of the truck. So what started as an easy DOD AFM delete and a cam swap turned into pulling the engine right out of the truck. Look at that lifter. I finally did get it out. It was like a holy grail type of moment. I was super happy, but that thing is absolutely destroyed. The roller on it is gone. Might take some pictures with my phone so you guys can see it a little bit better, but that thing is completely gone. And then it's shattered all through here. Like, it's completely just shattered. Pieces are missing. So I'm a little bit nervous about that, what might be stuck in the motor. But the fact of the matter is we did get it out. I'm gonna look at the lifter bore real quick, see how much damage we caused, and we will assess from there. So this is out. So like I was showing you guys the other night, when we got the cam out of this thing, it was completely wiped. It took out one of the bearings. So sadly this motor needs to come out, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because with how bad that lifter was, I'm sure there's metal down in there. So, and it gives us an excuse to redo the oil pump, put a new one on there. So we're getting ready to do that now. We got the AC condenser out of our way, and I went ahead and pulled the starter out. Not sure how well you guys can see down in there. But we do have the starter out of the way so that we can access the flex plate bolts. So that's what we're gonna work on now. We're gonna go ahead, get this thing turned over, and I'll start popping those bolts out.
All right, you're getting close right there.
So as you guys have seen, we got this thing stripped down. We've got the torque converter flex plate bolts off. We got the motor mounts undone. One over here fought me a little bit. I had to cut it. The nut on the frame started spinning, but we got that taken care of. So now we're gonna go ahead, take our Motion Raceworks lift plate, and we'll get this slapped on the valley and get this thing bolted down so that we can get ready to lift this thing out. So let's get it rolled outside. I don't think we're gonna have enough room in here for height with our engine crane. So we made a little push-pull bar, which I'll show you guys in a minute. We'll get this thing yanked outside and start pulling the motor. So we're getting ready to pull this thing out of the garage so that we can get the engine out of it. And I want to show you guys the quick little push-pull bar that we made. Super easy. We had some square tube laying around in the scrap pile. So we went ahead and grabbed that, ran to Harbor Freight and grabbed a nice $14.99 trailer tongue. We got 2 of those, put one on each end, drilled a couple holes and just bolted it together. We could totally weld it and do a few other things to make this really nice, but it's gonna work great for pushing around trucks or anything with a trailer hitch that doesn't have a motor in it or doesn't run. We can just back them up to each other and you can push this thing anywhere you need to push it. So I'm curious to try it out and see how it works. So let's get my truck fired up. We'll get that thing backed over here and give it a shot. As you guys seen, our push-pull bar actually worked out really good. We got this thing outside. We've got our engine hoist set up. Don't really want to pull the bumper, but we're pretty much maxed out on reach, so we're gonna see how this goes. Try to get this thing out. We do have the torque converter unbolted, so I'm hoping it just stays right in the transmission, and then we'll put a strap or something on it later to hold it. But we're gonna go ahead and start using the crane, start trying to get this thing pulled up out of there. So we got this thing separated from the transmission finally. It can be a pain because of those dowel pins. I had to go underneath with a pry bar and just keep tapping it in. Once we got a gap over there, we were able to pry bar all the way around, and this thing finally popped free. So we're gonna slowly lift it up now and start pulling it out and make sure we don't have any wires or anything like that connected still.
Your side. So I think we got it.
Alright, I'm gonna slowly start trying to pull this thing out a little bit.
Undid the bumper.
Okay.
So as you guys seen, we got this thing out. Things aren't looking great for it so far. The cylinders are looking a little rough, but before we condemn it, we're gonna go ahead, pull the flex plate off it, and pull the rear cover off, and I want to see what it looks like in the cam journals. We just want to know regardless of what decision we make. So we'll go ahead, get this pulled off, then the cover, and take a look at what we're working with. Alright guys, so as you can tell, this video has not gone to plan whatsoever. This was supposed to be a nice simple AFM DOD delete with a nice little BTR cam upgrade for my dad's daily driver, and it has turned into everything but that, leading to us having this little 5.3 out of the truck and on a stand. Once we got it on the stand, we did discover some damage that makes me kind of uncomfortable about dropping it right back in his truck, especially with a whole bunch of new parts in it. I'll throw some videos up on your guys' screen real quick so that you guys can check it out too. As you can see, the cylinder walls are pretty beat up, and it's not just that cylinder, they're all pretty worn. And then also the cam bearings are wiped out. They're just completely smoked. Personally, I haven't seen one that seized to the cam and had to come out with it, and this one did. This thing fought me every step of the way of getting that cam out, and we had that blown up lifter. So I really don't want to just drop this back in his truck with a whole bunch of new parts in his only daily driver. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap this engine up. I'm gonna set it to the side. We'll hang on to it for another project down the road. Maybe go through it, slap some boost on it, and have some fun with it. But that leaves us with needing a new engine for his truck. If you guys have any good suggestions, let me know down in the comments below. Should we try to find a 5.3, a 5.7, a 6 liter, or even maybe a 6.2 for it? Let me know what you guys think. Like I said, tell me down in the comments what you guys think we should put in this truck. We are still going to be using the BTR cam and the kit with everything that it came with to upgrade the new motor, whatever that might be. But that means that we are going to have to split this video up into a 2 or 3 part version, because if I make it all one video, it's either going to be so long that no one's going to sit through it, or I'm gonna have to cut a whole bunch of stuff out, and I don't like to hide any issues that we've had. And let me tell you, there's been plenty of issues in this video. So make sure to let me know down in the comments below what you guys think we should do with this truck. As always, I appreciate you guys for checking out the channel, and I really appreciate all the support I've been getting in the comment section lately. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, and check us out on all of our other social media platforms. Facebook, TikTok, and Bought to Build Official on Instagram, and we will catch you on the next one.